II, the Allied Republics. The French innovations were finished in Lombardy without their being able to repress the discontentment that each town, each village of that republic expressed in the most vehement yet useless addresses. Violence answered their complaints. The General Laws was deprived of his place for having dared to fulfill the mission of his government. The disaffection of the people facilitated the success of the old and faithful portions of the status quo antebellum. The parody that they were playing at Rome had arrived at its last scene. The military commanders gave and took away at their pleasure the consular toga from men so well known that they could not have become illustrious in mounting the capital. Holland, recovered from her last shock, began to assume a calmer attitude, seconded by her troops. She repulsed the attack of the English upon Flushing. Switzerland still resisted against our intervention and appeared always more irritated against the state of guardianship imposed upon them. These people, Republicans, found no compensation possible for independence, and the diplomatic sophisms had little influence upon their good sense. All the negotiations, therefore, were useless. They flew to arms, and there was no alternative except to change our politics or shed the blood of our allies. The Directory did not hesitate in their choice. Nothing is more flexible than weakness. When it thinks itself sustained by victorious bayonets, all reconciliation was neglected. Our brave soldiers were thrown by a senseless and cruel order against a part of the good and simple Helvetians. Seas of Republican blood were shed on both sides, as if we had any to spare, when upon the eve of combating against kings, the district of Stans became celebrated by a victory that was a fratricide. Third, the armies. The descent of General Humbert in Ireland was to have been seconded by an expedition that sailed from Brest. Our Aulic Council had disposed the affair in so wise a manner that the 1,500 Frenchmen who had just landed in Ireland were not supported. And when the army of Cornwallis had surrounded the valiant avant-garde, which was reduced to capitulate, the auxiliary squadron left Brest. That Englishman, the Irishman, Nate Britandy endeavored in vain to make good his landing. The arms which he brought with him for 10,000 men arrived too late. For several days past, Humbert had been a prisoner. The insurgents of Ireland, pursued without ceasing, were beaten. The hope of that powerful succor vanished like a dream. Our armies of Italy and the north, reinforced by the first levy of the conscription, awaited with impatience the signal for new combats. Accustomed to conquer, they thought themselves invincible. Napoleon continued his triumphs. We received dispatches from Grand Cairo, the taking of that capital, its administrative organization skillful and rapid. Several victories, among which shone those of the pyramids, the beginning of the works of the Institute in Egypt, all contributed to distract our attention from the results of the loss of our fleet and upon the Triple Alliance, mistress of the Mediterranean. For the interior, the legislative body, excited by the danger which approached, appeared at first unanimous to second the government with all of its power. They granted it some financial resources. They decreed a levy of 200,000 conscripts, first tribute of the grand law. The announcement of a crisis is always favorable in numerous assemblies when the minds of people are exalted. The renewal of the bureau had brought General Jourdan into the presidency. The majority of the secretaries also belonged to the Jacobin opposition. That opposition, after having accorded all the means of defense, returned to its natural malevolence, impatient at the slowness of the measures and eager for new ones. Briot, one of the most eloquent orators, proposed the formation of a committee of 7 members charged to meditate the measures that might be proposed to the legislative body the day upon which the Directory announced the rupture of the negotiation of peace. That mission recalled too sensibly the former committees of the convention, not to alarm us. It would in fact have displaced the center of action and annihilated the executive power. The orator had not even disguised his aim, for his harangue breathed only the most immoderate praises of the convention. We united with the directorials, and in almost general disapprobation repulsed the Commission of Seven. Another orator was not more fortunate in proposing the emission of 600 millions of national banknotes. They were afraid of that which resembled assignats, as they were that which resembled the committees of powerful and terrible memory. We avoided everything likely to alarm the Directory and peaceful men. The exaggerated party were at that time in the minority. They announced to us in a few days that the most estimable man of the party, the conqueror of Fleurus, accepted the command of an army. In fact, he wrote to the council to take leave of him. This worthy citizen possessed the esteem of all his colleagues. I took upon myself to become the organ of the universal opinion, and they ordered the impression of 6 copies of my discourse and the letter of the general. This departure weakened the Jacobin opposition. The parties of the council were nearly of an equal balance. They desired, but were fearful of taking bold measures. They desired, but were afraid of giving too much strength to the government, and the Republic gained nothing with all of our hesitations.